Let's talk about Safety Cat, the logline. How to write anything.
What the hell is that thing?
The logline is nothing more than writing one sentence. Okay, that's it. Bye.
Good job.
Just kidding. I will now get a little bit smaller to make room for some text and maybe a little TV screen. Up here. Somewhere. For what? You will know in a second. The logline is about writing 1 or 2 lines about your story. What your story is all about in 30 words. Because if you can summarize it in 1 or 2 sentences, you can sell it better to others. And you know if your audience or some buyers are more interested in it. And by also doing that, you know your story better and you can write it also better. That's why you should start with your logline. I mean, you could say the logline is your DNA for the story, maybe. When you have a catchy logline, and we will get to a few examples later, you will get noticed. Audience, your buyers, everyone will notice your story better. General rule of thumb, your logline should be about 30 to 50 words. The less words you have, the better, to be honest. So if you can summarize it in 12 or 15 words, then do it. Just do it.
Just do it!
Let's look for a few examples. Now it's working fine, without any problems. A just hired employee goes on a company weekend and soon discovers someone is trying to kill him. They retreat. A risk-averse teacher plans on marrying his dream girl, but must first accompany his overprotective brother-in-law, a cop, on a ride along from hell. Well, ride along. So the number one thing the logline must have is irony. It's all about the irony of the logline and the title. More examples. A cop comes to LA to visit his estranged wife and her office building is taken over by terrorists. Sounds familiar? It's Die Hard. A businessman falls in love with a hooker he hires to be his date for the weekend. Pretty woman. Irony gets attention. We will also later have a little game about loglines. Yes. I tell you the logline and you will guess the title. So the irony, you could say, is also the hook of your whole story, because that's what it does. It hooks your interest, or the interest of your audience, your buyers, and to be honest, it should hook yourself. But you should never forget that the logline is only the introduction to your whole screenwriting or screenplay or book. After irony, the second most important thing is the logline, as well as the title, should create a compelling mental image if you're telling it out aloud. At least you will see the movie while reading the title or the text or the logline. If you see the logline, or you see at least the potential and the movie itself already in your head, but not in a crazy way, in the mental health way, I guess. And the logline and the title will also create the promise of more. So, well, the point is that a good logline, in attention to pulling you in, has to offer the promise of more in the story. Not only about your villain that is going to be, I don't know, getting licked with puppies. So we have established the irony, the compelling image you should create, and last but not least, the third thing would be the audience and the costs. You need to know your movie or screenplay or book and what audience you're targeting and with what audience you want to connect and how much you would potentially earn from it and what would it cost. The examples of screenwriting, how much would the movie cost? Is it just in one taxi, like Taxi Driver?
I don't know, that's about the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Or is it fancy dancy in a big house on the land side, horror style villa, and is there exploding everything everywhere? The last thing would be a good title. Like the logline with the irony, a great title must have the irony part and tell the tale, your tale. You could think about the title like a good headline for your story. If the headline or your title doesn't say what's it about, then you should rethink your title. Let's summarize it in a bit before we start with our little game. A good logline, in addition to pulling yourself in, has to offer the promise of more, and it must satisfy, you could say, 4 basic needs or elements to be effective. The first would be the irony part. In some way it must be ironic or emotionally involving, because everything dramatic gets attention. Yeah. The second would be a compelling mental picture or image. It must engage your brain to instantly think about the movie itself if you're reading it out aloud. I mean, the whole movie must be implied in the logline of the title. And the third part would be the audience and cost. You must know your target audience and the sense of how much it will cost, and maybe how much profit your buyers will make from it. Not yourself, but yeah. The fourth part would be, the last would be a great title. You need to have a good logline, and it must include a good title, one that really screams about it all, what it is, maybe in a clever way that would be mwah. But never forget, it also must be a good headline for the logline and your story. Okay, now that we have established what the logline is all about, let's get going on how to write a good logline. Adjectives. That's it. Just think about good adjectives to describe the hero, the villain, the bad guy, and a compelling goal we as humans can identify with. The logline needs to have a lead character, so it has to be about someone, not just some things. You need to have at least 1 or 2 main characters or protagonists or people we can focus our attention to and identify with, and to root for them to succeed or not, because anti-hero story is also a thing, I guess. And also, the protagonist needs to carry the movie's theme. The hero must be created in a way that he offers the most conflict into a situation. It's all about pleasing your audience. You could say that the logline tells the hero's story, who he is, who he's up against, and what's at stake for him, or for the world even.
Try to take over the world.
You need to know that this 1 or 2 sentence pitch, this neat form, tells you everything about the hero and about the story. I know it's quite hard, but if you're writing a few loglines, take the logline with the most conflict, the most sharply defined hero and bad guy, and the clearest, most primal goal in it is the one to use. Now let's get to the Logline Game. Let's open up the screen, just the logline without the title. And you will tell me, guys, what movie it should be. So let's start. The first would be, when an optimistic farm boy discovers that he has powers, he teams up with our rebel fighters to liberate the galaxy from the sinister forces of the Empire.
Star Wars, starring Mark Hamill.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
Star Wars: A New Hope. 2 star-crossed lovers fall in love on the maiden voyage of a ship and struggle to survive as the doomed ship sinks into the Atlantic Ocean.
We're going to America.
Titanic. Next one would be, the aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son. The Godfather. Next one. In Germany-occupied Poland during World War II, a man gradually becomes concerned for his Jewish workforces after witnessing the persecution by the Nazi Germans. Schindler's List. The lives of 2 mob hitmen, a boxer, a gangster's wife, and a pair of diner bandits intervene in 4 tales of violence and redemption.
Come on, let's get in character.
Pulp Fiction. A man, while not intelligent, has accidentally been present at many historic moments, but his true love eludes him.
Would you like a chocolate?
Oh,
Forrest Gump. A computer hacker learns from mysterious rebels about the true nature of his reality and his role in the war against its controllers. The Matrix. Next one. A young FBI cadet must confide in an incarcerated and manipulative killer to receive his help on catching another serial killer who skins his victims.
She'll have to match.
Silence of the Lambs. Two imprisoned men bond over a number of years, finding solace and eventually redemption through acts of common decency.
That's exactly what.
The Shawshank Redemption. A blacksmith teams up with an eccentric pirate to save his love, the governor's daughter, from the pirate's former allies who are now undead.
Jack Sparrow.
Pirates of the Caribbean, Cursed of the Black Pearl. So now that we have established what a logline is, I want you all just to remember, think about 4 key ingredients. Who is the protagonist? What is their goal? What is the triggering event? What is the conflict? Maybe this helps. Thank you for listening. I hope it helped in some way. And if you like the series, please leave a like and a comment for what I could cover next time. I guess I'm just going to have a wonderful day. Bye!